The ocean is the greatest museum of mysteries on our planet. Its dark, silent halls hold more secrets than any library, and its exhibits are the shattered timbers of ships and the unspoken stories of those who sailed them. No single exhibit in this vast watery museum is more famous, more baffling, or more haunting than the story of the Mary Celeste. It is a tale that begins not with a storm, not with a battle, but with an eerie, perfect silence. It is the ultimate ghost story, made all the more terrifying because it is undeniably historically true. Our story truly begins on a calm, blue afternoon, December 4th, 1872. The Canadian merchant ship Dei Gratia is cutting through the tranquil Atlantic about 400 miles east of the Azores. The day is routine. The sea is gentle. Then the lookout spots something. A vessel, adrift. Her sails are still set, but they are torn and frayed, flapping uselessly in the light breeze. She is moving, but with the slow, aimless dance of a thing without a soul. There is no one at the helm, no sign of life on deck. Captain David Morehouse of the Dei Gratia is a prudent man. He knows the dangers of derelicts, ships abandoned but still afloat. They are hazards to navigation. He also knows that salvaging such a vessel could mean a significant reward for his crew. He brings his ship closer, close enough to hail the stranger. But no hail is returned. Only the creaking of timber and the slap of loose rope against wood answer him. Through his spyglass, he scans the deck. It is empty. The name painted on the hull reveals itself: Mary Celeste. A boarding party is launched. 3 men from the Dei Gratia row across the silent expanse of water, their oars dipping into a sea that suddenly feels much colder. They climb aboard. The first thing they notice is the unsettling quiet. A ship under sail is a living, breathing creature, full of noise and motion. This ship is a corpse. The deck is wet, but the weather has been fair. A single, long rope trails behind the ship into the water, its end frayed. The main hatch covers are off, lying on the deck. Below, the silence is even deeper. The boarding party explores the Mary Celeste with a growing sense of dread. They expect to find death, but they find nothing. The crew's quarters are undisturbed. The personal belongings of the sailors are still there: clothes, pipes, even their sacred seamen's chests. In the captain's cabin, breakfast dishes are set out. Captain Benjamin Briggs's sword and revolver are left behind. His navigational instruments are missing, but his logbook remains, the last entry dated November 24th. That's 10 days ago. The ship has been sailing herself, perfectly seaworthy, for over a week, with no one at the helm. Down in the hold, the cargo is intact: 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. A few barrels are empty, but there is no sign of a violent explosion or a leak. The ship has a year's supply of food and fresh water in her stores. There is no evidence of a struggle, no bloodstains, no signs of violence. It is as if the 10 people on board, Captain Briggs, his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, and 7 experienced crewmen, simply evaporated into the air. They left behind everything, including, most puzzlingly of all, the ship's only lifeboat. This is the core of the mystery. Why would a seasoned captain like Benjamin Briggs abandon a perfectly sound vessel? The Mary Celeste was found in a saleable condition. She was not sinking. She was not on fire. She was not being attacked. The lifeboat was gone, suggesting a deliberate, if frantic, decision to leave. But what threat could possibly be so immediate, so terrifying, that it would force a man to bundle his wife and infant daughter into a small boat and cast off into the open Atlantic, leaving behind the safety and supplies of their sturdy ship? The answer must lie in what happened between the last log entry on November 24th and the discovery on December 4th. When the Mary Celeste was towed into Gibraltar, the Court of Inquiry was determined to find a culprit. The Admiralty Proctor, a man named Frederick Flood, was convinced of foul play. He suspected mutiny or piracy, but the evidence refused to cooperate. If it was piracy, why was the valuable cargo left untouched? Why were the crew's personal valuables still in their quarters? Pirates of this era were interested in plunder, and there was plenty to plunder left on board. The theory holds no water. Mutiny, then? Perhaps the crew rose up against the captain, but Captain Briggs was known as a fair and capable commander. The crew was experienced, and there were no known tensions. A mutiny would have left signs, a struggle, weapons used, blood. There was none. And if the mutineers had killed the captain's family, why would they then abandon the ship themselves? The mutiny theory sinks under the weight of its own improbability. This is where our imaginations, hungry for an explanation, begin to conjure more fantastical ideas. Could it have been a giant squid, a kraken from the depths that dragged the crew from the deck? Or perhaps an attack by a rogue wave, a wall of water that swept everyone overboard? But a wave powerful enough to clear the deck would have caused significant damage to the ship itself, and the Mary Celeste was remarkably intact. And what of the lifeboat? A wave wouldn't explain why it was meticulously launched. We are left with the cold, hard fact that the logical, violent explanations simply do not fit the peaceful, orderly scene found by the boarding party. Perhaps the most compelling theory, and the one that holds the most scientific weight, involves the cargo. Those 1,700 barrels of denatured alcohol. In the 19th century, denatured alcohol was made with additives to make it undrinkable, but it was still highly volatile. The key here is the 9 empty barrels found in the hold. They were not broken, they were made of red oak, a porous wood, while the full barrels were made of white oak. It's possible that fumes from the leaking red oak barrels began to build up in the hold. Imagine the scene. The ship is sailing through a patch of rough weather. The barrels shift and groan. A faint, sharp smell begins to permeate the ship. Then, perhaps when the main hatch is opened for inspection, the built-up fumes meet a spark, a lamp, a candle, a struck match. There isn't an explosion, but a violent whoosh of air, a rush of flame that blows the main hatch covers right off their mounts. This is known as a pneumatic shock. It's terrifying, but not necessarily destructive to the ship's hull. To Captain Briggs, a man who knew the dangers of his cargo, this would have been a moment of sheer terror. The sight and sound of that explosive release of fumes would have convinced him that the entire ship was about to blow sky high. In a moment of panic, thinking of his wife and baby, his decision is instantaneous. Abandon ship. He orders everyone into the lifeboat. They tie it to the Mary Celeste with a long tow rope, intending to stay close until they are sure the danger has passed. They are certain the Mary Celeste is doomed, but she isn't. The fumes dissipate. The fire never comes. The ship, wounded but seaworthy, sails on. And then the weather changes. A squall hits. The Mary Celeste, her sails still set, surges forward. The tow rope, stretched taut, snaps. The crew in the lifeboat, equipped with only a few supplies, watch in horror as their only hope of salvation sails away without them. They are left in a small boat in the middle of the vast, unforgiving ocean. The Mary Celeste becomes their tomb, not by keeping them, but by leaving them behind. The mystery did not end with the abandonment. The Mary Celeste herself seemed to be cursed. After the incident, no captain wanted to command her. She passed through a series of owners and met with a series of minor misfortunes. Finally, in 1885, her last owner, attempting an insurance fraud, deliberately ran her aground on a reef in the Caribbean. Even in death, she was used for a dishonest purpose. The ship that had been the center of one of the world's greatest mysteries was left to break apart on the rocks, a sad and ignoble end. The legend, however, was only beginning. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, wrote a sensationalized short story based on the event, popularizing the misspelled name Mary Celeste and adding fictional elements like untouched meals and a cat sleeping on a cot. This fictional account blurred the lines with reality, cementing the ship's place in popular culture, but also distorting the facts. The real story was strange enough. It didn't need the embellishment. So what really happened? The alcohol theory is elegant. It explains the lack of violence, the hurried abandonment, and the seaworthy state of the ship. It fits the facts better than any other. But it is still just a theory. We will never know for certain. And perhaps that is why the story of the Mary Celeste continues to captivate us. It is an unfinished sentence, a riddle without an answer. The Mary Celeste is more than a historical curiosity. She is a blank canvas. We look at her story and we see our own deepest fears reflected back at us. The fear of the unknown, the fear of being utterly and completely lost, the fear of a danger so swift and inexplicable that it leaves no trace. She represents the ultimate what if. What would we have done in that situation? Would we have panicked? Would we have made the same fatal mistake? The ocean gives up its secrets reluctantly. For every shipwreck we can explain, there is a Mary Celeste that defies explanation. She sails on, not in wooden canvas, but in our collective imagination. A permanent ghost ship on the sea of human curiosity. Her crew is gone, but their story is immortal. They are forever frozen in that moment of decision, a moment that passed from history into legend, leaving behind only the creak of the timbers and the whisper of the wind in the torn sails. A mystery as deep and as endless as the ocean itself.